So I've had two heart openings in my life that I recall and remember really specifically. The first one was about love in general. And when you have a heart opening, it's like your potential to love expands so much. But the first time, it was really about how I was loving and how I had never experienced what felt like unconditional love. I knew that I had unconditional love. I knew that my children loved me unconditionally. I knew that my parents loved me unconditionally. I knew that I loved unconditionally to a point, but I had never felt it. And I'd always kind of teetered around feeling like I had to perform, like at any point people might drop me, etc. And it was like this weird fear that kind of harboured away in the background that wasn't like, I didn't really think about it, but I guess it was like working in the background as all our limiting beliefs do. Anyway, I had this heart opening, and from that point I realised one of the biggest reasons that I had lost friends in the past had really been down to my absolute lack of emotional capacity to have a really difficult conversation with the people that I loved. So instead of actually just saying the thing I'd need to say, I would avoid having the conversation. And what I realised was, if I want to have unconditional love, I have to be able to bring those conversations to the table and not just cut people off, because I would. If someone pissed me off, I'd just cut them off. I think that's not really worth it. They wouldn't listen to me. There's no point, that kind of thing. And then I'd cut the relationship off, and I'd make them the bad guy and I'd be the good guy in my head, yeah. Of course, nothing's ever that clear cut, but that would be kind of how things would go. That's like a universal thing that everyone does. It's okay. But when I decided that if I loved someone, I owed it to them to be honest, before things got to the point where I started labelling them the bad guy and me the good guy, once I started to do that, I haven't lost any friendships since, because I'm not in fear of cutting people off, because I don't cut people off anymore. If something's difficult, I will say something to them. And that was such a big shift in unconditional love, because of course I could never feel unconditionally loved, because I was not unconditionally loving. I was not unconditionally being kind, to say a really difficult thing, sometimes, albeit that conflict may be unkind, is the kindest thing to do to maintain the friendship, even if the outcome is not what the other person wants to hear, even if the thing that you're telling them is gross or horrible or not nice, or your truth but makes no sense on paper. Like, not being able to bring that to people is performance, and when you're in performance, you're not really loving that person, because you're not really loving who you are, because you're not really in a true dimension, because you're faking it, Anyway, so that was the first time, and that time really just expanded everything for me in love everywhere. So even with my husband, like, we have a completely different relationship now, where I don't question it all the time, but I was lying in bed and it said that my heart, it would feel like it would just burst open, and it was just like this river, and it honestly felt like that. And I was lying in bed, and my son was lying on my chest, my daughter was in the bed, my husband was in the bed, and I just cried and cried and cried. So that was heart opening number one. I'm going to tell you about heart opening number two. Number one was really capacity to love, and number two is about business and what we do in the world. So follow for more.